Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. I'm gonna show you how to make Ragnarok. Yay, Fortnite. I'm sure you guys love a Fortnite. And if you find this helpful, please like and subscribe so you can find me again. Alright, this is gonna be a long one, guys, so buckle up. Here we go. I went online and printed out a picture of Ragnarok, because of course that's the one my son wanted, because he couldn't find a more detailed one, I think, anywhere. Anyway, so we got my cutout, and I'm starting with a light gray color. I'm rolling everything out to be about, I want to say, what is it, like a quarter of an inch thick. That's going to be the background that everything is going to be built upon. Now, starting with my template, I am going to trim around his body and just use it as something to build on for the flat. He's not going to be 3D because I just no. Just no. I love my son, but yeah, no. So once you cut them all out, do the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to move it around a little bit and make it work. So, and he was holding some kind of a axe, not an axe, a spear or something in his hands. But I'm going to put the axe in his hand, the pickaxe that they use. So don't worry about the weapon part. You can do whatever weapon you want. And I'm also going to have him standing in grass on the cake I made, so I didn't bother with the boots. If you need to, you can finish the bottom too. Just find a better template than me. Alright, here's where it starts to come into play. Alright, you're going to use the tool that I have, or whatever tool you use for pressing down or making details, and start pressing areas lower than the areas in front. So I'm going to trace out where his arms are. You can kind of see where I did that on his left arm there. Going to trace out the right arm. I'm going to trace out the handle of what's going to become the axe in his hand. And I'm pressing all of that down. It's going to start to create depth in the flat figure, so it'll look better when we start adding other details. I've pressed down around his belt, around his boots, his legs, all these things. You just keep referring to your template. Anything that sticks out, so some of his armor is going to stick out. His beard, his antler thing, his his skull head, all these things are going to be pressed out. You can see it there. If you need to pause it and reference it, go ahead right now. Like I said, you can see his boots, his hands that are on the handle, his cloak where it goes down behind his back, and where it shows behind his legs. That all gets pressed down too. And once you get everything pressed down where you want it to be, we're going to start adding the color. I'm doing this light blue sky color because he's kind of glowing, and I can't make my gumpaste characters glow. I'm not that skilled. So I'm using the light blue color that I just put there on either side of his mouth just to give it that look. So I'm starting to build reference points basically. What I'm doing here is taking darker pieces of gray and wrapping it over his arm and shoulder, his left arm and shoulder, to simulate his armor that he wears. It's kind of layered. If you look at the templates, you're going to see what I mean. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just building some layers. I just cut out some rectangles and just layered them on top of each other. Everything is being attached with a little bit of water. Wrap it around the sides, press it down, trim off the extra. There you go. You can see what I'm doing there. Okay, now I've taken a piece of white and I've rolled it out really, really thin. And I put it on top of the head where the skull helmet thing is going to go. And now I'm using all those lines that we pressed out before, is basically mapping out the white where I need to trim. So if I could move my big stupid fingers out of the way, you can see just using my X-Acto knife, I'm just picking away at it. Make sure you have enough white to wrap around the sides. That's going to be the ear. Just keep on working at it. Okay, and you're going to have to take it nice and slow with the face as well. Okay, so like I said, you got to just keep trimming away carefully and slowly. I lift it up, I look where those lines were, and you start to just nip away at it, keep shaping, keep shaping. This part takes a while. It's honestly kind of a pain, but you can get through it. All right, I was able to do it, so you guys can certainly do it too. Just, again, reference your template and get the idea of where you're going with this. He's got those little, tusks or whatever that come down the sides of his face, and then he's got that scruffy little beard part. I guess it's like the jaw or the nose part of the animal, whatever skull he's wearing there. So just keep trimming away at it and just get that look in there. I'm pressing down the sides. Remember to try to wrap it around as much as you can. And that blue that we'd put on before is showing up behind the skull very nicely there. And now using this pokey tool that I've got, I'm just pressing little more details into the antlers. It's hard to see, but you can see I pressed down in some eye sockets and some details around the ears and the top of the antlers where it connects to the head, or horns. I keep saying antlers, horns. And for the bottom part here, if you look at the template, his mouth part, I guess, is like all roughed up. So that's what I was doing there, just cutting out some little jaggedy edges. There you go. Now you can really see the eye pieces. I just pressed some indentations again with the tool. So that's all you have to do for that. We'll come back to it. I jump around a lot because that's what you do. When you're building this, you want to start with a back layer and build up. So I needed to get his chest armor on before I could add his beard. That's what this gray piece is before. Anytime I did armor, I use this darker gray. Again, roll it thin. You don't want it too thick because otherwise your guy's going to be all lumpy and puffy and it won't look like a good lumpy puffy. It'll be a bad lumpy puffy. So yes, I am trimming out around his arm and going around the other arm. Got to watch out for his handle of the weapon he's holding. All that good jazz. So again, just taking your time, trimming it out, reference your template, and remind yourself over and over how much you love your child and that they're totally worth all this aggravation. All right, so just trimming away. Every time, take it off, put it back on. I'm going to attach it, I think, with a little bit of water there. That's what I did. And I'm using my fingernail to just make a little pressure mark where I'm going to cut, because again, just following those pressure lines you put in at the beginning, those come into play a lot. So make sure you do a good job with those. All right, you just trim it out. Now I've got kind of a breastplate that he's wearing. And using my tool there, I'm going to push it up into the edges of his arms and everything so it fits a little better. Like I had said before, you don't have to worry too much about it being perfect because you can move this stuff around a bit. And that's what I'm doing there. It's hard to say, again, it's a lot of just pressing and shading kind of stuff, but I made a line, like a semicircle, to show the way his armor lays. And then I'm using this knife blade to show the lines in his armor that go with his chest plate. I think he had like 3 on each side, something like that. Okay. And it kind of goes to that center semicircle thing. Yeah. And with that, I believe there are lines in there too that I'm going to put little marks in. Yep, you can kind of see how it is. So the lines connect on either side of the semicircle. You'd go down a little bit, make a flat edge, and then go back to the other side again. And once again, I'm just pressing down with a tool to try to make more of a sharp edge on it to give it a little more depth. And then there you go. Okay. Now I'm using brown. I rolled it out nice and thin. I've got really skinny little strips that I've cut out. And RAGNAROK's armor is, I don't know, it's like he's got leather underneath of it or something, or it's edged in leather. So I'm trimming out his armor with leather on his arms. You can see either side there, and there's a band that goes across his chest. So that's why that piece is there. I'm going to be adding parts down below now as well. So that's, I don't know what that is, if it's a sword scabbard or just a piece of cloth that hangs. I don't know. My son plays, I don't. So I'm adding that to him. Again, everything's connected with a little bit of water. I think maybe it's part of his outfit. I don't know. But there's little scraps of brown that go on the sides as well. So that's what I'm adding there. And like I said, just keep cutting out little pieces and keep adding them. Just keep building him up. It's going to take a long time. So yeah, this guy took me a long time. So there's his belt. And trim it where you need it. Got to watch out for the handle of his weapon there. That's what that little cut was for. And on the other side there, you can see on the other side he's got like a pouch or a little cup or something. I don't know what it is. but it's over there, so just be aware of it. Now we've got his loincloth. As you know, you need a loincloth over your armor. Got to stay modest when you're killing hordes. And I just trimmed it so it would sit underneath of his belt. And don't worry that it's all the same shade of brown or anything like that, because we're going to add more details to it later on that you'll get to see. And it'll be just so awesome. So yes. Alright, you can see I'm trying to match it up with a little piece that's hanging down below as well. So keep in line your original cuts, or keep in mind, excuse me, your original cuts, and keep them in line so that everything just flows so beautifully. And I'm sure you guys have realized I did not add all of the details that RAGNAROK has. As long as you get the major ones that define him, you're going to have a good looking RAGNAROK. Alright, we've got more armor coming here. This is the little piece that goes kind of over his forearm and down toward his wrist. And I cut a piece that matches the hand on the other side as well. So once again, just trimming and laying it out and using those guidelines you made at the beginning. Wrap it around, stick it in place, la la la, there you go. Everything's attached with a little bit of water, like I said, and you just keep on pressing. So, yeah. Alright, already it's coming together. This thing took so long to make, and it was so much to edit, but it's already looking so much better. Okay, make sure all of your lines line up, your edges line up, and if it's too thick, you got to press it down a little bit more like I did there. And press it so it fills in all the lines and edges you have to match up to. And just keep taking your time with it. And yeah, there was another little piece that I cut out and put on top of his loincloth because even your loincloth needs protection. So you've got, yeah, your armor, loincloth armor, I guess. So these are more little scraps of his armor that I'm adding. All I did was cut out some scraps in gray, press some lines in them just to make it look a little more plated. And a little bit of water, press it into place, make it so it fits, and rinse and repeat. Alright, this little poof of change here, I have silver shimmer. It's a silver edible shimmer that I got at a cake crafting store, and I added it with a little bit of water to make kind of a shimmer that I could paint on. I know some people say use vodka or some kind of alcohol. I use water. I never have a problem with it, so I don't know. But all of the armor that we've added, we're going to add this too. So be ready for that. Now I'm taking little basically teardrop shapes of the light blue that we used before, and I'm staggering them around the bottom of his skull because this is his beard. He's got that kind of a, I don't know, pirate, like Blackbeard sort of thing going on. And it's all separated into little tufts. So that's what I'm trying to do here with this blue. Just keep adding more to it. These are all pretty much the same size, but in the front I'm going to add some extra longer pieces because he does have the longer ones that hang down lower in the front. It's not all symmetrical all the way around. So that's where I went with that, as you can see. Now using that same light blue, I'm going to add little slits of it to fill in the eyes because he's a cranky blue glowing headed guy. So he doesn't have nice round eyes. He's got rather very oval, slitted kind of eyes because he glares. That's how he sees the world, through angry eyes. Alright, so just, again, a little bit of water, press it into place. If it's too big or too small, just pop it right out and add a new one. Just make it work however you see fit. Alrighty, there we go. Make sure they match up as best you can too. Okay, I'm going to also add a little bit of that light blue color to the inside of his horns on top of his head. They have they're supposed to be glowing, I think, but of course I can't emulate that, so I'm doing the best I can with this color. I am just using a circle cutter and going to cut it in half and then just wrap it around each of the horns on the inside. So that's what you're seeing me do here. There you go. Now you can see me do it. So once again, yes, we just keep telling ourselves we love our children and that it's totally worth seeing them happy. And yeah, just keep telling yourself that. Maybe you'll believe it. So once you get them into place like that, make sure they're all even, and the blue on the horns don't actually come down onto the skull. It kind of starts at the base of the skull, sort of, so make sure you don't go too far down. And what I'm doing here, you can kind of see my hand rocking against it. I'm putting these basically like divots, pressure marks on the inside of the horns, because if you look at your template, you're going to see the inside of his horns is not smooth, it's kind of scallop edged. And that's the effect, you can see it there, that I was going for. All right, moving on, getting that brown back out. What are we going to do with this? Gonna make more strips, that's right. We're just going to keep on adding. Yep, this is going to be more of the edging around the armor. Seems like any of his armor is going to be pretty much outlined in leather or the brown somewhere. And his gloves also, or the forearm covers, whatever they're called, they also have crisscrosses on them. So I'm making the piece that goes around the edge of his armor there thicker than the one I'm going to put into the middle. You'll see that in a moment. So I'm kind of pulling on it a little. I pulled on it a little bit there to make it a little bit thinner, not thicker. And I'm going to make a couple little crisscrosses. Go easy when you add any water to the shimmer that you laid down, because if you put too much on there or brush too hard, you will wipe it right on off, and that just sucks. You don't want to have to redo it. It becomes very much a pain to try to redo. So once again, you get the thicker on the two ends of the armor, the thinner band right across the front. And we're doing the same thing on the other side. Gonna have the thicker kind of going diagonal there, because this wrist is kind of bent up and around, so it's going to have a little bit of a different look. And then the same thing at the bottom of the armor. And in the middle of the armor, add your crisscrosses. I jump around a lot, guys, so you have to bear with me here. If you are more meticulous and you go top to bottom, that's great, but don't forget to go, from the furthest back to the most outer layer of detail that you add. So anyway, yes, now it's already starting to look pretty cool, I gotta say. He does come together very nicely. Yep, gotta add more of the edging there. Oh. Okay, so now we've got blue, we've got silver, we've got brown leather, we've got edging. Time to use our black. And the black I'm doing here, he's got another stripe of cloth, oh, I don't know what it is, another belt or something going across his chest. So that's what I'm doing here. And of course I realized a little too late, I'm going to have to lift his beard a little bit, so learn from my mistake, people. Make sure you add that carefully, or at least maybe if you're clever enough you'll add it first, although my video may have misled you on that one, in which case I humbly apologize. Alright, we've got another belt going over here, another black strap holding onto something to keep his pants up, but if you're wearing all those layers on around your waist, I could see you needing a lot of belts to keep them up. Alright, I've added black and gray, black and brown together to make this kind of a, I don't know, mossy colored brown. That's going to become the handle of the weapon. I'm just cutting it out to a length that I deem worthy and then putting it into place. It's not perfectly straight yet, but bear with me, it'll be okay. And that is just it's just two little balls of peachy color that I pressed flat and laid over top and matched up to the armor there. I'm flattening the two edges and then just making indentations for the fingers. That's all I did for those. There's not a lot of detail in there. If you want to go deeper with it, by all means have at it. But at this point I was so fried on Ragnarok, I was starting to not care. So don't have that attitude. Stay with it. You can do it, yes. I didn't have anyone telling me that. So poor me, I know. Anyway, now we've got him standing there, we've got his armor mostly done. And he's got a handle now. He's not just strangely holding his arms anymore. Okay, press it into place, wrap it around. There you go. La la la. Okay, his right shoulder on top of his armor has like a bone armor decoration. So that's what I'm making here. It's just a piece of white laid around his shoulder. It's really small, it's nothing special. I made a bunch of little white thin pieces that are laying across it so it comes down toward his chest because it's kind of like a rib cage or something that's on his arm. And then I made little teeny tiny white basically triangles that I stuck on top for the little spikes in the bone. I don't know if they're spikes or vertebrae. I don't know what it is. But that's what I did there. It's just kind of hard to see. And I'm doing the same thing on this side. I'm adding the spikes to the gray shoulder plates. I, again, make little like Hershey Kisses almost, very teeny tiny ones. And then add one to each of the plates on that side. The other one I think had 3 or 4. This one has 1 for each plate. So there's going to be 4. And again, be careful when you add them, not too much water because they'll slide right off, or you'll end up losing your silver shimmer. And we need that to keep the metallic look going. Okay, I'm cutting out more gray over there, and it's going to become the top of his boots. I'm just kind of winging it here because the top of his boots is all jaggedy, kind of like Charlie Brown's shirt. You know, the black on his shirt just zigzags. What is that, chiffon, I think it's called, something like that. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just trimming it out. Just cut out your wedge, cut out a triangle on the bottom. Basically cut out the letter W. Yeah, that's really what you want to do. Cut out the letter W. And then you can add it to the top of his boot, and it will look just right. There you go. And the same thing is going to be on the other boot. The angle's a little bit different, so the cut is going to be a little bit different, which is why I'm laying it over top here. So it's more like a, I don't know, kind of like a silly looking lightning bolt kind of thing. And since it is more of the metal, I'm using the same silver shimmer that we used before and just painting it in so it's shiny. Little touch-ups here and there never hurt either. Okay, I'm just going back to add a little more of the detail to his chest plate because it got lost over time. Sometimes if your gum paste is too soft, it might fill in a little bit of the pressure marks. You might have to do them again, but that's okay. You can handle it. This is literally just black food coloring that I added a teeny bit of water to, and I'm just painting it in to give him his shading and a little bit more color. So I painted in the bottom of his boots black. I painted in around his arms, like where his chest is kind of showing. I'm doing it, it's more of a watered down color at this point. So you can see it there between his shoulder armor and his forearm armor. You can see it on the top of his pants, or I'm sorry, not his pants, excuse me, his cape where it hangs down behind him. And I added it again to the other side of him as well. I filled in his top of his legs with some just shimmer because it looked like it was just armor in the picture I had. All right, and I brushed over some of his armor with a little bit of the black as well. Make sure it's watered pretty thin but not wet on your brush just to give it some shading. And now I'm doing the same thing with the leather. I'm just giving it a little bit of again, the dark muddy kind of gray color I made, brushing over with it. It just adds some shading to it, makes it a little more detailed looking. All right, I added a little bit of black, basically an upside down arrow for his nose. A little bit of black lines on top of his ear horn things there, whatever you want to call them. A little bit of black to make accent lines on his helmet and his beard. I'm going to take, this is all edible food coloring markers that I got at Walmart. They have them in, a halfway decent assortment of colors. It's not too bad. So I put little red lines across the beard to indicate where his little rubber bands or whatever are holding his beard tufts together. And I'm using the light blue color to paint over where he glows light blue. I thought maybe if I could make it shiny, it might make it look a little more like it was light, like it's supposed to be. So that's what I'm doing with that. I forgot about his belt buckle, so I'm adding that in. It was literally a circle that was just had some jaggedy edges cut out of the top. And using gold shimmer this time, I filled it in and painted it in with gold. Now I'm ready to do the axe head. I had that weird shape before that was just part of the template, so I just cut it out. But just cut that edge off, cut literally a long triangle and curve it with a line down the center and fold it over the top of the handle. I painted this with the same kind of like the muddy color that I used for his cape. I added a little bit more brown to it though, just to make it a different shade so it's not all the same, because if you do different shades it really makes a difference, so it doesn't look like you just got bored of it. And a little dot of black to keep it in place. And there you go. You got your frickin' Ragnarok. All right, hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you'll like it and subscribe, because dang, I feel like I earned it on this one. All right, check out my other videos and I will catch you all next time. Thank you very much. Bye.